In the previous video, we have discussed how you wrote the SQL query, fetch the data and hold it in a list. In this video, we are going to see how can you iterate that data, right? How can you go inside the list and see each and every data. See, remember, list is always like, multiple boxes in a chain. You see a chain, right? Chain is what? Is collection of small what do you call this, sub chain, correct? So list is also like that. List is basically a memory in the database where you keep adding data in the next of the list, right? So with the moment you add data, it will just add the index, and each index here in Salesforce, each index will hold one record. You get it? So let's say this SQL query is returning, understand this line, okay? This SQL query is returning, suppose, 2 records. Let me just remove this line. This SQL query is returning 2 records, okay? And I'm not giving this limit. So this SQL query is returning 2 data, right? Account, and let's say each account out of this 2 SQL test record, each account has suppose 5-6 contacts or maybe 100 contacts. Get it? So each index of this list variable will have the account data and all its associated contacts data. Account data and all its associated contacts data. You got it? That's how lists work. Lists are basically these square boxes. 1 box, 2nd box, 3rd box, and so and so. Let's say there are 5 boxes. Each box of the list will hold one data of account. All you need to do in the real code, now we're going to start a little bit of real coding, right? In the real code, all you need to do is you as a developer have to write a SQL query which will fetch, let's say, thousands of records. And you have to go and read each and every index of that list to fetch the data, to get the data out of that box, out of the list index, and see what is the value of the name, the account number, whether there's a contact or not, so and so. Got it? So let me just quickly show you something here. I'm just going to remove this where clause, okay? What's going to happen now? This query is going to give me all the account records. If I have like 100,000 of account records, it'll try to fetch all the data that you have in the account object. And now I have this ACC variable now loaded with account and its associated contacts data. Account and its associated contacts data. How do you go and fetch the data? How do you go and read the data, right? See, for this we use something called for loop. For loop is very, very important, okay? This is called for each loop. If you don't know for loop, then you cannot iterate the list. And if you don't know how to iterate the list, how can you take the data out of the list? List is what? It's a variable which will hold some data, and you need to do the data manipulation, correct? So for that, you have to go and see what's there inside the list. Take the data out of the list index and do the manipulation. For an example, if I give a real example, right? Suppose I have few contacts which I have to update by writing some Apex code. So you have written select ID name from contact where something is equal to something. That query has given you a lot of data. Now you have to go and filter the data. Let's say you don't have to update everything. You have to update only those contacts where the phone number is null. So for that, you have to go and see each and every data that is there in that list variable. How do you do that? How do you extract the list data? Is through the for each loop. This for loop is going to help you to go iterate over a list and see each and every index and get the data out of each and every index. Make sense? So the syntax of the for loop is this. You have to write for and you have to write account. Basically, you're taking a variable. Let's say ACC. That's the variable name. you have declared a variable called account variable. What is the type of the variable? Account. What does it mean? It means this variable can hold only account type of data. Get it? Now I'm gonna write ACC over here. Understand this for loop? Okay, if you understand for loop as a beginner, if you are coming from any development background, you must be knowing about this for loop. This would be like very basic for you. But if you are a beginner, this is something you have to learn. You have to write it, you have to type it in your system and test it. That's very important, because without this for loop you can't write Apex code. Right now, for loop, how it works is basically it runs, for each loop. This loop is called for each loop. It will run over each and every index of a list. If this ACC variable has suppose 1000 data, the for loop will run 1000 times, one by one. It will go to the first index. By the way, in the list, the index start with 0th, then first, second, third, fourth, and so on. So the for loop will first run, go to the 0th index, the first index, and fetch the first record that you have. By the way, in the 0th index of this ACC variable, what type of data you have? Account type of data, right? That something can be easily accommodated here in this variable. You're getting me? You have declared a variable which is a type of account. That means it can hold only account type of data. Your SQL query is returning some account data and you're holding it in this ACC variable. This ACC list variable hold, let's say, 1000 records. Each record is account type. So first time your for loop will run, understand this, first time your for loop will run, and whatever you have in the 0th index, whatever you have in the first index of ACC variable will come and sit into this variable. That's how for loop works. Now the first index has, let's say, the first record of account. It will be there in this variable. Now you can go and check whatever you want. This variable has the first record. Suppose you want to check if the name is SQL test, right? Suppose you have to check what is the name of the data. Let me just repeat it again, right? Just to make sure that you're not disconnected. This ACC variable will have thousands of record. First time for loop will run, and whatever you have in the first index, the first account record will come and sit into this variable. And you are checking if this dot name is equals to. By the way, if you're checking something, you have to give double is equals to. If you're assigning something, you have to give 1 equals to. Assigning means right hand side, you're fetching some data and you're assigning in this variable. That's why you have used one single is equals to. In this line number 9, you're checking whether the name is equal to, what was the name? I think SOQL test. And that's the name. Correct? So you're checking if this is equal to this, right? Where is the if, by the way, right? You're checking if. So you put if the name is equal to this. If this is true, if that is true, then do something. Let's say we have found the data. Making sense? This is a text, right? So you have to put it in the system.debug, right? So I'm going to quickly write it inside system.debug and starting the bracket here, ending the bracket. Done. You're getting me what I've done? I'm just checking this SQL query will return all the data that we have in account object, but I have to check whether I have a record called SQL test or not, right? That's what I'm doing. I'm checking here for the first time when the for loop runs. What is the first record? Is the name SQL test? No, that's fine. Go back to the next index and see the next data. Is the name SQL test? No, no problem. Go back to the next. So if there are 100 records, 100 times your for loop will run. Each and every time the data, whatever the index hold, will be there stored inside this variable. And each time it will be checked if the name is equal to SQL test or not. And then this line will be executed. Got it? Now my question is to you. What do you think? How many times we will be able to print this line? If I execute this code, how many times this line will be printed? Let me remove this line, okay? Can you guess? I save this code. I'm gonna put Control E, execute highlighted. If I go and try to debug, I hope most of you have understood what will be the print. See, I got 2 times. We have found the data, right? I have got this 2 times. Why? If you see the output, line number 11 has been printed twice. We have found the data. I've got it 2 times. Why? Because in the database, there are 2 records with name SQL test. In the database, there are 2 records with the name SQL test. That's what we discussed, right? These are the 2 records. One is this, another one is this, right? And that's why this for loop, let's say the account object has 10 records. First time for loop ran, it found, no, that name is something else. No problem. It will again run second record, name is SQL test. Yes, it will print it. It will go to the third record, name is not SQL query. No problem. It will go to the fourth, fifth, sixth. It will go to the 10th record. Let's say it found, yes, the name is SQL test. So again, it will print. Got it? So for each loop is something we shall go and iterate over each and every index that the list variable hold. If the list variable has 100 records, for each loop will iterate 100 times, and each time it will hold, this particular variable will hold the data that we have in that particular index. Once you have the data in this variable, you can do whatever you want. Okay, so I just have shown you how to print it something. Next video, I'm going to show you how to do an update operations, probably with the same code. All right, so in this video, I'm just trying to explain you how the for loop works, because this for loop we're going to use a lot in the future coding, right? Hope this part is clear, and see you in the next video.